All right, let's see how confusing this gets right off the bat, because I'm gonna try to do something. I'm gonna try to talk to a broad audience and a narrow audience at the same time, which probably isn't the best, but that's who my friends are, and that's who the people are that are watching. It's both a broad audience that want to know even what is an NFT and what is Bitcoin, and then it's a narrow audience of people that have been in the crypto trenches for years and understand all the differences between Bitcoin and Ethereum and things like that. So just gonna start off with this. Like the title says, Bitcoin has NFTs now. Okay, Bitcoin has NFTs now. To talk about that, you have to kind of explain that Bitcoin, for a long time, the narrative has been that Bitcoin is money, which is fine. We're going to stick with that narrative now. Bitcoin is money. And for a long time, there's been Ethereum is for smart contracts. Ethereum is for smart contracts. Ethereum is for DeFi. Ethereum is for, if you're coming from the Bitcoin perspective, it's a lot of buzzwords that kind of feel overhyped. And if you're coming from the Ethereum perspective, it's a lot of like excitement, right? Because you hear the term Web3 and you think about, oh, we're decentralizing Web 2. And then when you hear about Web 2 is like regular websites like Facebook, Twitter, Gmail, like that's Web 2. And the problem with Web 2 is that it kind of sucks now. Like it's ran by big corporations that aren't necessarily always on the side of the individual user and do like weird things with our information in order for them to make money. And so that's the downsides of Web 2. And we kind of all feel that, regardless of how kind of up to speed on tech you are. It's just not the greatest experience, and it didn't fully live up to the end means that it could. Like the internet is still a relatively new thing, and we're still all figuring it out as like people and as a generation. And so Web 2 has kind of hit like a ceiling, and people are craving something different. And so there's the two camps, like kind of like theses that have formed around this are kind of Bitcoiners that believe in like fix the money, fix the world, and they're taking a very like money first approach, and it's a lot based in economics and finance and things like this and things that are wrong with the banking system. And so they talk about like that being the most important, and then kind of the Web3 stuff, like redoing social media and redoing kind of online pictures and redoing this stuff is like lesser or like less important or just overhyped and like not being honest, right? So that's kind of in general what's happening there. And what's happening from Ethereum back to Bitcoin is they're kind of saying that Bitcoin isn't innovating and like it's fine. The money thesis is fine, and to varying degrees they agree with the thesis, but just disagree with the way it's being implemented. And then some people fully disagree with the thesis and just kind of have a broader approach on like the multi-currency world they see in the future, I guess. And so that's what's all happening. So to the narrow people, I would say that's a pretty decent characterization. You can nitpick at the edges, but it's a pretty decent characterization inside 15 seconds, 30 seconds of what's happening. And to the broader audience, that's why you like see so much kind of back and forth. Like that's the reason why there's so much back and forth, and why crypto doesn't feel like this cohesive thing that is like easy to categorize, or like when you talk to different friends, why you get different answers. So that's why that's happening. So, okay, why is this new development of like Bitcoin having NFTs interesting? It's interesting because it's forcing both these worlds to collide. It's forcing both of these like theses to collide. And so even for myself personally, I'll speak on this, like I was very much like fix the money, fix the world. Like money felt like the first thing that should be fixed, and it should be. And I'm like passionate about like taco shops should like switch to Bitcoin, like legitimately, but like very seriously here today. The best thing like a small business could do is begin to diversify what currency they use and not only use US dollars, because the software involved in using US dollars is only run by banks. You're not able to run it yourself. And so you should begin to learn how to run Bitcoin yourself and diversify away from the US dollar being your only currency, because it's good for your business. Like it undercuts credit card fees. It allows you to get the money faster. It allows you to actually hold the money without holding periods for banks. And it's moving to just like a money that increases in value instead of decreases in purchasing power. And so that's all positives. You can find that stuff everywhere. But what So NFTs then are digital items. We'll just go with digital items right now, and stands for non-fungible token. So like a one-off, just digital item. Not trying to be money, just like a thing, right? Like a digital version of a thing, but you can verify that it is that thing, right? So a collectible is like the easiest thing to think. Or like these NFT collections, they're a lot like online clubs. Like you're a part of an online club because you own the NFT, and so you get certain benefits for doing it. So, and then some places decide to layer kind of finance on it and do different financial things with it, but don't have to go there for today. So something where my brain began to turn on this is because it's really easy for me to talk about the taco shop in IRL, in the physical space that we just talked about. But what's been happening for a long time with like OpenSea, like OpenSea is a big website that sells NFTs. People collect NFTs on there, and the base currency of OpenSea for these digital collectibles is Ethereum. And for a long time, I didn't really think about that. Honestly, wasn't really thinking about what was happening inside the online space because I was so focused on like brick and mortars and Bitcoin meetups and things like that, replacing fiat money out in like society with Bitcoin, that I didn't realize that so much digital traffic had already been adopted outside of the US dollar. And so people are buying and selling these digital items using ETH as the base currency. So then you kind of get into, and even me saying like, oh, ETH is a currency, like it's kind of like a mindset shift. It's a mindset shift. And so now that, because you couldn't previously do the NFT trading on Bitcoin, but now you can. So now you can. And what's happening now is that both worlds are colliding, and now we can have this conversation about which one is better currency, ETH or Bitcoin, and which one do you want your digital items priced in. And even right now, when you go out and look at the prices of, they're called ordinals, like Bitcoin NFTs, you're gonna hear the term ordinals or inscriptions. I'm not super into, like, I don't need to splice hairs on like either one of those things right now. Both mean kind of different things, but just broad terms like Bitcoin NFTs are happening, inscriptions on Bitcoin are happening. The two worlds of Web3 and kind of digital online artifacts, and Bitcoin being the most hard money or like the most secure or like is all that's colliding, okay? And so now when you're looking at these ordinals for sale, they're being listed, the ETH price and the Bitcoin price side by side, which is so interesting. Because so I've been an advocate now for like, if I believe that the taco stands are gonna like switch to a Bitcoin standard, then it's obvious that the digital items have to switch to a Bitcoin standard also. And so I'm just happy to see that. Like I'm happy to see digital items trending towards being priced in Bitcoin also. And so for me, Bitcoin NFTs are a positive development. Another thing, getting kind of a little bit tangent, is Bitcoin NFTs make the Bitcoin block space more valuable. Like the fact that there's now like there's now different elements of demand in order to get into the next block, because the way that Bitcoin blocks are mined, it's a public auction to get your transaction into the block. And so that's what the miners are. Like the miners that you've seen on my channel, people pay a fee to get their transaction verified. And so that's increasing the value of the entire network, bringing in this entirely different use case. Another thing I wanted to point out that we'll see how well it edits in is a lot of people that are kind of building in Web3, they see their thing that they're building a lot more from the perspective of a business than from the perspective of like a nonprofit, okay? And then a lot of the early people that were working on the Bitcoin open source software, they're very much in the world of like nonprofit open source software development, right? Both for the like mission of it and just for that's how like the free and open source software community works, okay? And like, why does this matter? Both approaches I think are fine, but it also contributes to like, again, the overlap and disconnect, or like the talking past each other. It creates even more friction in that. So we talked about the use case differences, but then there's also like a mentality difference of people are like, well, Bitcoin's not a company. Bitcoin's not a company. True, like very, very true. But like other things tangential to Bitcoin are companies. Like, and it's okay if they're companies, or it's okay if they're using new words like DAOs or like whatever protocols for their thing, because then you go down this whole long rabbit hole of, what's wrong with companies, and you realize the centralization problem of companies, right? And so, yes, the farther you get out the kind of hypothetical timeline and kind of the problem that you're trying to solve in the world, does it get like more and more theoretical and more potential for it to be overhyped? Totally, completely. However, what's also overhyped is believing that like all software development is going to follow the same like grant nonprofit system that original Bitcoin like development and things like that got off the ground. This was a big one for me. This was a big one for me because I didn't realize how much of kind of Bitcoin development was leaning on just these grants, and it kind of does breed like a tinkering mindset, just kind of a tinkering plod along mindset. And you know, like I'm a very like just like type A, go, like we have to achieve like the political means that Bitcoin can like right now, and we have to like save the world. Like I'll take it all the way there, that like I believe that the world like does have like a centralized like elites problem, and I think that software is the best way to punch through it. And so even for-profit software has a chance to punching through it, because I don't want to fight tech and government at the same time. Like I want Web3, Bitcoin, crypto, all of that to continue to brain drain Web2, and for there to be new ways for people to make money with software that are solving issues for people. So totally. And I think people would agree with that at the high level. And then it's just, we nitpick off problems where that's gone wrong. And totally. That is the exact messiness that we're living in. And so I just wanted to highlight that that's also another thing that has led to kind of my desire for like this Bitcoin NFT thing to really kind of create a third way of people that are working on this like combined path of like Bitcoin as base currency, and just kind of all the best parts of Web3, NFTs, kind of all the buzzwords.